Okay, so this is probably going to seem like a little bit of a jump forward from the last time. I haven't had much time to actually video. The gist is, it's early January, it's getting colder, and I have been trying to get these vents put in. And I've been waiting for a slightly warmer day so I could glue them in so that the glue would actually set. That was today. So I've been running over here a lot on lunch breaks this past week just to chisel out the holes, and then I had to add these spacers on the top to make sure that it all fit together right. And I ran over here today and I was able to glue in all of the vents. Here's the door. And vent over here, and then the front. And that essentially separates the crawl space from the outside so that the animals can no longer get in there. Hopefully I will have no more cats in there. If there's any in there right now, I guess they'll just have to get out through this gap right here at the moment. But once I get the subfloor down, the crawl space will be isolated and I won't have that issue anymore. So, got another one here and another one up here. So that one has been a long time coming, so I'm very thrilled to get that done. The weather is going to get cold soon. It is going to get snowy and rainy soon. So the only other thing that I really need to try to get done is all my attempts to fix the leak. Let me show you back here. So the house, I'm sure I've showed you, has a leak, and it is in that valley up here, and I have tarred it. I can't really see what's on the screen. Here we go. I have spread tar and Flex Seal and everything else all over the area to try to stop the leak, but it's just not working. So it's gotten a little bit better, but it's still there. So I'm just gonna have to, for the time being, I think I'm gonna just spread a tarp over that entire valley, tamp it down, and that'll hopefully get me through the winter, allow me to do some work inside without water coming down, and then next spring hopefully I should be ready to redo the roof. So, but that is where it sits. Now I've got to run back home, go back to work. But yeah, very glad to actually catch that little bit of warmth and get that finished. So, good stuff. All right, see ya. So it has actually been several months since I've been here to do any kind of significant amount of work. Wintertime. You know, right now it's pretty cold over here. I don't like working in the cold. It's also been really wet, so that's not been fun. And I've just had a lot of things to do around the house. So we're in early spring now, and I want to talk a little bit about the new challenges that have come up during that time period. So the biggest one is groundwater. So, you know, I'm very familiar that this house is in a floodplain. From previous times that I've dug holes pretty deep, I know that the groundwater can get pretty close to the surface. I mean, you know, when I had that half of the house all open and I dug those, you know, I saw that it would get up about, I don't know, a foot down or something like that. This year was a little bit different. We had about 2 weeks of rain in a row, and there was a lot of flooding. And at some point I came over here to just pick up some tools, and when I opened the door, the mud on this side, the dirt on this side of the house, which is still exposed, was very soppy. It was like step in it and you sink kind of level of liquid, like a slurry almost. And I was like, oh my goodness, so that, you know. So, I was trying to determine a couple things. You know, is the water coming in underneath of the concrete walls that I've had poured? You know, I mean, it's possible. They're not ridiculously deep. You know, on that side where the water should be coming from, they're pretty deep, but maybe the water's coming up underneath. You know, that's pretty common. I haven't put a drainage ditch out there yet, like I'm planning to, so that's possible. But it didn't really add up. I didn't think too much about it. And then, so I came inside and I was looking around. I had some holes dug over here, and the water level in the holes was like really close to the surface. And then I realized that what's happening is that the groundwater is just so close to the surface that it's just permeated everything, you know, and it's just gotten that. So it's not like the water is coming in from one side and I can catch it and redirect it, and it's the groundwater's just coming up from the bottom everywhere. So I started thinking about what to do. So a couple weeks later, it had dried out. I've been checking it periodically, and then we had like another couple days of like really heavy rain. And I came over here, and there was about at least an inch of water just floating in here. It was like a swimming pool, you know. So I think what's going on there is the groundwater has come up, and before, when the house was, you know, didn't have this block wall all around it, it probably would just kind of drain out the back of the house over here. But now it can't do that. I've got the block wall, so it's just sitting here like a swimming pool. And I can't really have that. It's too much moisture. You know, this is all treated wood, so probably won't rot, but doesn't mean I want moisture all over it either. I mean, you could get mold, you could get growth. You know, I've got insulation. So the interesting part was this side where I've got the plastic down, you know, all of that water remained under that plastic. So that side, you know, was dry, and this side was over here, all, you know, water everywhere. So I did a lot of research, and in situations like this, they usually happen like in coastal locations, as far as I can tell. You know, maybe I'm wrong about that, but from the research I did, that seems to be where groundwater getting really close to the surface is the biggest problem. Most of the issues are coming in when like the groundwater is like on a basement or a foundation, and it's like pushing on the side of the walls, and then it'll work its way in or something like that, you know. But in this situation, you basically just try to work out a system to keep the groundwater in here below ground level. So that's what I've decided to do. Obviously the go-to solution would be something like a sump pump. And a lot of times in crawl spaces you put a sump pump in where you might have a wet area, that kind of thing. And so after doing some research, I'm going to put the sump pump in the ground somewhere over here. This is the lowest part of the house, over here under the kitchen. The ground kind of gently travels that way. And then in order to keep the groundwater level below throughout the whole crawl space, you create like a trench grid system. The sump pump well is about 2 feet deep, so dig a hole for that, grab all around it 2 feet deep. And then the trench system might be like 1 foot deep, and it's got rock and perforated pipe. And if the water level comes up, it gets into the trenches, it gets funneled into the sump pump well, the sump pump pumps it all out, which is great, except that I've already put the subfloor down on that half of the house. So what do I do there? Do I just not worry about that half of the house and trench this side since it's the low part and hope that works? Do I take up a couple pieces of the subfloor and try to dig a trench in over there to catch in over here? I don't know yet. I'm going to put that conversation on hold. The first thing I'm going to do is dig in a sump pump well and get some trenches and a grid on this side of the house, all feeding into that. Like I said, it's early spring. I've luckily had a couple weeks of drier weather to where the groundwater level has gotten low, it's drained out. It's one of the reasons I've been over here, because I can't really dig a 2 foot hole for the sump pump when the water is 6 inches below the surface. So I needed to wait for it to drain out. So hopefully it's low enough. I really don't know how low it is right now. I can't see it in any of the holes I have over here, but So I'm going to dig that out today, dig the trenches today, see how far I get. Hopefully during the rest of this week I'll be able to get the well in, perforated pipe, gravel down, because I want to be able to set this up to just go ahead and work. Go ahead and get it wired up, go ahead and get the pipe running out so that it can just go ahead and pump out any of the water that comes around in spring, because it's usually wet, in this part of the world in the springtime. So, and I don't want it holding me back anymore, so try that out. Once that's done, I'll be able to lay down my plastic, put the floor joist in, and move on from there. So another hiccup, but that's the plan. So I guess I'm gonna get to it.
So while you're waiting on me, you can always be smooth and grab it out. I don't know what you're going to do today. This is going to go quick, man.
I hope so.
This is going to go quick. I think so. You don't have a extra piece of tarp, or you got one of those big heavy duty garbage bags? Kind of rigged up here, but you be careful when you step out. Okay. Wobbly. You want to make improvements. Should be somewhat centered.
Oh, man. Okay. Okay, let's do a quick update. Been at this for several days now. Weather's been nice, like I was hoping. No rain, and everything's had time to kind of drain and dry out in here. So, got the trench system dug all around the outside, and it's all piped in. I've got perforated black pipe with sleeve down in the trenches, filling it up with gravel over on this side, and it all comes down to this T-joint into the sump pump well, and that T-joint into the sump pump well. That half also all around the edge. It's all angled to flow this direction and down into the sump pump well, which will eventually pump it up and out the side of the house and out the drain. As far as the discussion I had about what to do about the other half of the house, I've thought about it a lot, and a couple things come to mind. One, the entire time that water was in the surface over here, it was primarily over here, like in this part of the house. So this crawl space, while all dug out, has a slope to it, and it moves down to this side, which is why the sump pump is kind of located here to catch all the flow this direction, and then while I've angled all the trenches on this side down to send it into the sump pump well over this way. And so the water never actually got above the plastic on that side. So it all stayed below the surface or under the plastic, and then kind of came up over on this side. So because of that, I'm probably okay. But to help out, I've dug these little stub trenches up as far as I could reasonably, and a little length of perforated pipe with an end cap on them. I got 4 of them, one in each of the little sections going up underneath that part of the house. So I think that any water that might travel under the plastic or come over there will probably get caught by those, and again filtered into the sump pump. I'm going to say that that is good enough. I'm not going to lie and say it's just because I'm being lazy. I'm being a little bit lazy. I don't want to have to rip up that subfloor again after I put it all in. I really don't feel like doing that. So the way I view it is, if it turns out to be a problem in the future, well, I'll just, I don't know, hire a crawl space company to come in and finish the trenches up on that part of the house. But I think it'll be fine. So what's left is to get the gravel all in place, and then I'll be able to put the plastic down and get my floor joists in. You know, obviously I'm going to have to put the sump pump in here and get a outlet set up in the crawl space, and then the pipe. That'll come later. I just really needed to get the trench system in while I had dry weather, just in case more water comes. So yeah, hopefully it'll stay dry until I get the sump pump fully operational, but the critical part is done. You know, I've got the digging done. So yeah, I just need to get the gravel in. So I've got that now. I've already got some of the gravel in, obviously, but I had to order more. I'm borrowing a truck because my truck is currently in the shop. So we're going to get the it's been rained on. Yay. Get the gravel in, fill in the trenches, and move on from there. Hallelujah. All right, let's do it. All right, everybody, good morning. Check this out. Rock and piping all done in place, and I've cleaned out the area, gotten rid of any construction trash and large rocks and stuff like that, getting it all ready, and I can finally get the plastic laid down. I don't believe I could express how excited I am to be close to being done with the crawl space and the foundation over here. So, today I'm going to get the vapor barrier plastic laid down all throughout this side. I'm going to weight it down like I did on the other side, tape up the seams, and yeah, when that's done, hopefully I'll be able to walk through here without tracking mud everywhere again, and then I can finally start on the floor joists. I still got to get that beam notch to put into place, and a few more brackets installed over here as well, and then I can start laying in the floor joists. So that's the hope. So once again, let's get to it.